This is Scott Spratt from ProFootballFocus.com Fantasy, and this is another Fantasy Slam. It's Week 14, and that means it's time for the fantasy playoffs. More than any other time through the fantasy season, this is the important weeks to decide whether or not your borderline start and sit running backs have good or bad matchups in making those start and sit decisions. So let's talk about some of the advantageous matchups. There are only 7 teams with either 1,500 yards allowed or 13 or more touchdowns allowed on the ground this season. They are the Titans, the Giants, the Packers, the Raiders, the Jaguars, the Saints, and the Falcons. Here are a couple of those borderline guys that face those teams. First, Bishop Sankey is facing off against the Giants. He's actually had 10 or more carries in 4 straight games and 9 or more in 7 straight. He hasn't exceeded 61 yards on the ground yet this season, but look for him potentially too here against the Giants. Frank Gore is facing off against the Raiders last week that just got run all over by Trey Mason of the Rams last week. Gore hasn't been quite as effective this season, but he should be a running back 2 or maybe high-end flex this week with such a good matchup. Finally, Jonathan Stewart had a very nice game on Sunday with 100 yards from scrimmage. Meanwhile, his backfield mate D'Angelo Williams broke his hand and may not play this week. The Panthers are playing the Saints this week, which is a very positive matchup, and Stewart's been very effective. He'll be a running back 2 this week. Next up, the running backs that have bad matchups are facing some of these teams. The Lions, the Broncos, the Jets, the Cardinals, the Dolphins, and the Patriots all have allowed either 100 or fewer rushing yards or 5 or fewer touchdowns this season. First up, Jerick McKinnon. He's facing off against the Jets this week. Prior to Week 13, McKinnon had 14 or more carries in 4 or 5 games, but he missed Week 13 with a lower back injury. Even if he returns this week, it's going to be a tough matchup against those Jets. And with some of the uncertainty there and with Ben Tate kind of getting worked into the mix in Minnesota, I'd consider McKinnon more of a flex than a running back 2 this week. Finally, Ryan Mathews is facing off against the Patriots. Since Mathews returned from injury in Week 11, he's been the 14th most productive running back in fantasy. However, the Patriots have allowed just 5 rushing touchdowns this season, so it could be a tough day for Mathews as the Chargers will look to air the ball out rather than try to run the ball. That makes him more of a flex consideration as well. From Pro Football Focus, this is Scott Spratt.